Hello and welcome to this Panasonic Tech Talk. Today we are going to be talking about IVI-based connected suspensions. This is Ed Walker. I work for Panasonic Automotive here in Peachtree City, Georgia. And joining me today is Rob Stanford from FOX Suspension. Rob?
Hey Ed, thanks for having me being part of this Tech Talk. As Ed mentioned, I'm Rob Stanford. I'm a technologist for FOX Suspension. We're based here in Braselton, Georgia. And it's exciting to talk about this subject and how IVIs and suspension relate to one another.
Right. Quickly, can you tell me something about the off-road market for our viewers here?
Yeah, so a lot of people know us in off-road, and for those users or consumers that don't, we are a high-performance off-road suspension manufacturer, and we are quite diverse in not only suspension but also other vehicle chassis components as well. The off-road market is really expanding rapidly. When you look at the market, about 20% of all vehicles sold are pickup trucks, and of those trucks, 30% of aftermarket upgrades are done on those trucks. So it's a big opportunity for off-roaders and for companies that are in the off-road market. Currently, I think the market is around $14 billion and looking to expand into $18 billion by 2026. So, and that's just trucks and SUVs. Also an exploding market is the side-by-side market, or UTVs as a lot of people call them. Those extreme sports have really promoted those types of vehicles. So everything from a Polaris RZR to Can-Am to Honda, we supply suspension components to the UTV market as well.
Interesting. So customers are spending big money on these off-road mobility and connectivity features, looks like.
Yeah, they are. So the main driver for that, I think, is people are just looking to explore outdoors more than they have in the past.
Right.
These vehicles are quite versatile. In many cases, in the past, vehicles have been really good at off-road or really good at on-road. But with the advancements in technologies, suspension technologies, and electronics, these vehicles, people are getting a lot more use out of these vehicles, not only for on-road, but off-road. And I think that's where vehicle systems that you guys are creating in terms of IVI help enable that. I think a lot of people have this notion from years past that the IVI systems are not that capable.
You know, initially it was just a radio where you had AM, FM maybe, and then, came the trend of in-vehicle infotainment where you had a little more settings, you had navigation come in, and now it is becoming the center of your entire car, right? You have vehicle settings in there and so much more functionality to the point where even, multiple other modules are being controlled by your IVI system. And that is where Panasonic focuses on, right? And we are creating a complete e-cockpit solution.
Yeah, and I think, that's one of the things that the reason why we came to Panasonic is because we see this trend in digital occurring where consumers expect kind of a decluttered environment when they enter the car. They expect the car to be intuitive. They expect everything to be in one location. I think those experiences is what are starting to differentiate one vehicle for another. And so we started contemplating, with our electronic suspension technologies, how would the future consumer interact with our live valve? For the audience, those that are aware of what live valve is, it's essentially electronic shock that's controlled by a vehicle controller. Whereas traditionally passive suspension that's not electronically controlled require the user to hop out of the vehicle and make an adjustment to their suspension as they're traversing different terrains. But with the event of live valve, people can make those changes electronically. So we started to research how would the Fox user make changes to the suspension in the vehicle. And the IVI seemed like a very intuitive place to have that user experience. The problem with that, though, is traditionally a lot of OEs are creating their own bespoke systems. So for us to invest or create a platform that was specific to one OE, it was really difficult to invest that way. So that's when I started to see where IVI systems were going more platform. And when I reached out to you guys a couple of years ago, I said, hey, we have this idea. And that's when I discovered about this SkipGen platform that you guys had developing.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, that was, so SkipGen started out back in 2017 when we decided that we needed an internal platform to work on, and not just any development board, right, from your SoC vendors. So we created this actual automotive grade development platform that could be plugged into any car and, be used for demos. So it started off with us using it just internally, and now it has mushroomed into a reference hardware that is being used by multiple companies. So yeah, it's been a good journey.
I was surprised when we got our hands on the hardware, how powerful it was, how many inputs it had, as well as like how simple it was for us to install and start, get going on new user experiences. So we're kind of in the experimental phase now with this platform, and we're starting to learn a lot more about it. Having early access to this has certainly been beneficial. So we were certainly glad you guys said yes to the collaboration and offered us the opportunity to start doing development work on this platform. There are really unique and unthought of ways that I think people can use this platform. We're starting to uncover those. We're not quite sure what that experience will be for the end user, but rest assured that when we bring a infotainment application to market, it will be uniquely Fox. So this is having early access to this is really creating a lot of immense learnings for us. The vehicle behind me is upfitted with the IVI system, with the SkipGen system, with a custom display, so it looks OE. And we're able to, obviously do a lot of exciting things with this. When you think about the SkipGen unit and what information is available, things like steering angle sensor, things like even how much fuel is in the gas tank. Those things all matter when it comes to perfecting ride dynamics. And so being able to have access to the Android OS and thus Android properties make us communicating with the rest of the vehicle easier than, being on the CAN bus, for example.
Right, exactly. And that is the whole idea behind this. And I am so glad that, you guys are using it and using it to its potential. Talking about premium rides, right? Fox traditionally has been in the off-road competitive market. Where do you see yourselves now with this new live valve solution?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because indeed, we do focus a lot in race, and a lot of what we develop in race will make its way into these consumer products. When you really look at what's happening in race and look at the vehicle systems that's on a trophy truck or a race truck, it's very similar to the information that SkipGen is able to provide us. We work really closely with our racing development team, being part of the advanced team. And those vehicles are upfitted with all sorts of sensors and acquiring so much vehicle data. Now, not unlike a consumer vehicle where you're really trying to tailor the ride experience to the end consumer, the race vehicle itself, we try to tailor the algorithm and the electronics that we have installed to that particular racer. So that's where I see the parallelisms from what we're doing in race and how those will transplant themselves into the end user experience. Because Ironically, we could configure this vehicle to be specific to a particular user. Multiple people will be driving this vehicle.
Oh, absolutely. And we already have user profiles already created, right? So each user could set their unique profile. So not only would it change the color, the theme of the entire car and the display, we could now use it to change the suspension settings, right? It could be multiple people in the family driving that same Jeep. One person is using it for work, so highway riding, it would be a little stiffer. But then over the weekend, someone else is taking it out onto a trail and you need a different setting. So you just change the profile and lo and behold, you get your connected suspension using our SkipGen IVI.
That's right, and we really are kind of thinking about this as somewhat of a digital co-pilot, much like you have a co-pilot in race. This system acts as your virtual co-pilot. Because when we look at what would constitute a digital co-pilot, the system is able to acquire a lot of important information from the IVI, including GPS, brake, throttle position, things of that nature. So having access to that information will really help us to improve the overall ride experience, depending on the particular user driving and riding in the vehicle.
Absolutely. And actually, Panasonic has a software platform called One Connect that does an end-to-end integration on the back end for, specific items like this, where a user could be driving around on a new trail and that information gets set up to the cloud and he can go back home and on the computer, look at that route, maybe add, delete it, and, send an updated route back to the car. Right. One Connect can also, even do partial updates or even do a full update of applications or the entire software on that vehicle.
That's really interesting, Ed, when you start to talk about the cloud compute capability and how that can be utilized for ride dynamics. Something we're certainly studying ourselves. And really going back to kind of the trophy trucks, a lot of people may not know, but those trucks actually pre-run a race and they use GPS coordinates to really help fine-tune and set up their suspension and throttle and acceleration during the whole race. So imagine having that capability from the cloud to be able to unlock those opportunities for an end consumer. I find that quite fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. So that gets Fox, to create a true futuristic connected suspension system. So what are your thoughts there? Where is Fox going in?
These learnings that we're obtaining now by having early access to this IVI is really going to help with the future intelligent suspension development at Fox and improving overall ride dynamics.
That's interesting. So where does Fox see this partnership with Panasonic and the SkipGen unit go, right? What do you plan to do with that?
Well, it's interesting because as you guys start to build different types of hardware, the hardware is there. So you can differentiate and create new experiences based on software. And so we actually see being able to create fresh experiences not just on automotive applications, but also for UTV applications as well. I think many users will find it interesting that people are spending between, sometimes $30,000, $40,000 on these UTVs. And that's a market that's really untapped as it relates to infotainment in my mind. You're starting to see some traction with companies coming out with very innovative infotainment systems for UTVs because after all, when you spend the kind of money that they're spending on these vehicles, you would expect the user experience to be great. To this point, people have been differentiating UTV products based on suspension upgrades or engine upgrades, but I think you're going to start to see more and more development in the IVI space with even UTVs. So that could be an interesting opportunity for future collaboration as well, because I would see that the SkipGen platform is extensible not only to automotive, but also to the UTV market.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's awesome that you guys are using our reference platform to, create this demo vehicle. And like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So, an actual live demo of your suspension working and being controlled from in the vehicle is really, really great. So this was an awesome talk, and I appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks, Ed, for having me. And next time you're in the area, stop by and we can take the vehicle out for a drive.
Oh, trust me, I will. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.